A reappointment to Rochester Public Library Board of Trustees. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Introductory item number 47, authorizing a receipt of grant to fund repairs to components of the Rundell Memorial Library cooling system. Comments or questions on this issue?
Quick question.
Councilmember Patterson.
So I really should have asked this question on the last item, but I didn't. Had a good conversation today over at Lincoln Library. Good things happening over there on a regular basis. One of the comments that was made was that they're having a hard time finding librarians of color. That branch really needs librarians of color. And so my comment was, well, how about growing our own? Is that something that we can do? And the response back I got was, I don't know. So my request is, could we look into having a conversation about developing a pipeline or a mechanism to develop librarians of color, working with some of our library aides that are currently working for us in our libraries and working with our kids every day?
Hi, Councilman Patterson.
Hey.
Dr. Tolly Reeves was going to join us today, and I wish she was here because as branch assistant director, she has actually been working on an initiative for library diversity.
Okay.
In terms of hiring. The best pipeline we have currently right now in terms of developing a scope of work that really gives more exposure to city school district and charter school district students is our literacy aid program. It's a summer program that's funded in part through the city school district, and each year we've been able to hire on a permanent part-time basis on average 3 to 4 of the 20 students that are hired. 2 of those students have gone on to become part-time library assistants, and one of those is actually going into school for the Masters in Library Sciences.
Oh, fabulous.
So that's been a good pipeline so far. What we're finding is recruitment for individuals in the civil service program who already have to have the MLS in place to be hired as a librarian 1 is where we have been struggling, and that's where Dr. Reeves has been working on different recruitment initiatives. In several of those cases, and I'll defer also to Tassie, we've been hiring as library assistants who may have the degree but not the master's degree. We are working on a scholarship program that Dr. Reeves is working towards to expand on the tuition reimbursement program to enable online MLS degrees. There are no local MLS programs. The closest is University of Buffalo, but there are a number of online programs. So we are working to expand that currently. So while it's still a work in progress, it is something that I believe Dr. Reeves has been tackling since she joined us about 3.5 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion. All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. We're going to go back because I said introductory item number 46, and it really was introductory item number 80. I was reading from my book and not the most recent agenda packet. So can we amend to change it to introductory item number 80 versus 46? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for introductory number 80.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. Introductory item number 48. I'm going to hold this item in committee. Over the years, we talked about having a plan to get out of the tax sales, delinquent tax sales business with the carriers that we have. That we haven't done that. We want to phase it out. And because we don't have a plan, I'm not comfortable advancing it at this point. Maybe we can have a discussion about it at some point, but right now it's held. I don't know if anyone would like to make any comments on this issue.
Councilmember, I don't think that we ever said that we were going to phase it out. We said that we were going to do a hybrid approach, and that's exactly what we did.
Maybe I'm forgetting something because I remember phasing being specifically said.
I don't remember that. I don't recall that. All the documentation that we have shows that we were going to do a hybrid approach. Last year, Councilmember Ortiz had laid out a number of different concerns that our finance director at the time, Charlie Benacasa, wrote a letter laying out all the issues and answering the questions and outlining how we corrected the issues and the problems that were being faced at that point in time. And so we always had the indication that we were going to not sell as many tax liens, that we were going to continue to sell those that were owner occupied. We were going to work with the Neighborhood and Business Development Code Enforcement team to actually look at it and do a detailed review of all of the tax liens that we were getting ready to sell to make sure that in those neighborhoods where we are going to do investment and other things that we weren't selling those tax liens. And so this is the first time that I'm hearing that we were supposed to completely develop a plan to phase out of the selling of tax liens.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. So I did send that, I think, around last June because it was the 5-year anniversary of us having done the study and gone through that in process. Unfortunately, I didn't actually get the letter from Benacasa. I got it from our new treasurer, not treasurer, but finance director. Thank you, who I don't know how involved were in the process 5 years ago. It didn't necessarily address all of the things because it said that we were going to continue on and try to monitor the process, which I can understand, but I think the documentation, and perhaps maybe it's just us reading it differently, really recommended an approach that would eventually get us to a point where we would not have to necessarily sell the liens, and that it would get us to a point where perhaps, because there were recommendations in there to take a look at servicers as opposed to purchasers on there, and a lot of those things unfortunately were never really looked into. So yes, there was one in there that said to be more strategic, which granted we have done on there, but there were also other recommendations that we really just didn't give it really any time to, in terms of taking a look at maybe RFPing out for what a servicer could look like, taking a look at what ramping up our own internal opportunities might be. So the only thing we did do was actually look at maybe being more strategic, but even along those lines, it has not always been the case where we've only sold all the vacants, where we've only done the the low liens and things like that. So perhaps we're getting better at that part, but the number of liens are actually increasing in terms of the ones we've sold over the last 2 years. So if we are trying to do less of them, we're kind of going in the opposite direction.
So I apologize if you did not actually see the letter. I believe that it was emailed to you as well as delivered to your office last year around in June when this issue came up. And so if you didn't receive it, I apologize for that. That letter has been, clearly detailed what the city was doing at that point in time. And if there was another direction that council wanted us to go into as far as looking at servicers, as looking at other options that have been in that review, then we would have done that. We have been operating under the auspices of that we did what we were supposed to do, which was really evaluate the program, bring in a hybrid approach, whereas we would not sell the tax liens for individuals that we would do our best to do collections on our own first, that we would not sell owner occupant, that we would only sell mostly owner occupant liens, because of the fact that this is a way that we are able to keep owner occupants in their homes longer than in prior years, and that we would work closely with our Office of Code Enforcement to make sure that properties that were in despair, that were in conditions that really needed to be torn down and not actually rehabbed or sold to someone else, that we would hold on to those, that we would expedite those being demolished, and that's what we have done. This is the first time that I am hearing that we were supposed to go in a different direction, that and so we can prepare to do that at a later date, But at this point in time, this particular item in depending on, I'll have to talk to our budget director. Our budget depends on us being able to actually sell these tax liens in this condition. And in the future, I would love to be able to sit down and go through what is it the direction that council wants us to take on this. Because all of us over here was under the impression that we were just doing the hybrid approach, and that was fine.
Okay, and I would appreciate the opportunity to do that, because that was specifically why I sent the letter last year, was checking on our status of the other opportunities we had to do servicing, to look into other creative options, perhaps even more options internally. That was the whole reason I sent the letter. The response, like I said, that I got was, we weren't aware of that, but my letter was then basically saying, this is what we thought, or I thought we were trying to do. So I would love the opportunity to get together, because I do think that, I think fundamentally, at least for me, I just don't agree with this practice. So that aside, I think it would be a good opportunity for us to investigate further options. So I understand the timing on this, but I really do think that it really adds a layer of confusion when we talk about multiple companies. Right now, there are 2 or 3 companies that, so ATF, right, that we sell to, they have an opportunity for assignees through eBerry and Cheswold. Then there are 2 additional servicers that potentially will then make the calls on their behalf. So there's 2 more companies, not including the other 2 companies that the county also sells to with Propel and Tower. So there is a plethora of companies potentially that a resident is dealing with. So I understand giving homeowners more time, but I don't know if that couldn't be satisfied with a servicer or other options internally that we might be able to provide to prevent them from foreclosure. So I hear what you're saying, and I understand the timing. I just do fundamentally believe that we can do it better.
And that is something that we can definitely explore. My understanding was that, and from the letter, the question was asked, was there a plan and timeline for concluding the selling of tax liens? And the answer to that question was no, there wasn't, because of these reasons. And we never heard back that that was not the direction that council wanted to go in, that council really wanted us to actually conclude the sale of tax liens. And so because that letter was never answered, it was accepted as is, we never went down a path of doing something different. You know, at this point in time, I will respectfully ask that this be passed, and then we work on other options. The situation is that these servicers, or the selling of the tax liens, allows those individuals to charge a reduced tax rate, a reduced interest rate than the city is allowed to. They can give people more time to pay than we are allowed to. And if council would like to move into the direction of actually not selling our tax liens, then we will be foreclosing on a lot more properties than we are right now, and those properties will be of owner occupants. And we will be then in a position where we have to manage those properties, as well as if those individuals are not paying the taxes or the rent, then we will have to then get in the process of evicting them. Right. And so if that's the way that the city is looking to go, I think that this is a more detailed discussion than we can have today. But at this point in time, because of the constraints and the fact that this is the first time that I'm hearing about this, that's the direction, I think that I respectfully ask that we proceed with this, and then we work on an alternative that we can work on for next year.
Councilmember Gruber.
Thank you, and I appreciate the strategy that's clear in the way this is moving forward, including involving the land bank to a greater degree than it seems like it's been included before. But the question I asked in agenda review, which probably was phrased poorly, was about how this type of work is going to be kind of folded into the comprehensive plan, and the response was basically it's not, and that's maybe because of the way I worded the question. But I would hope that the comp plan, which I'm really looking forward to seeing, and I know there's been great work done on it, I'm hoping the comp plan, which really addresses pretty much every one of the issues in the CGR report that came out years ago, or the Center for Community Progress report, I'd hope the comp plan has some way of, if not phasing us out of this, at least making sure that when it comes for us to vote every year, we at least understand, because maybe the folks on your team do, but I think we need to understand the strategy and the rhyme and the reason for what the hybrid model actually includes. And the response back was no, it's not phasing out in the comp plan, but is it addressed in it at all?
At this point in time, the comp plan is a very comprehensive document. It's not necessarily addressed in detail about specifically taxes and this issue. And it is really a policy decision on what City Council wants to do. The reason why we got into the tax lien, sale, of course, was because there was a number of properties that we had made tax agreements with. We give people, we make 5-year tax agreements with a lot of people. We require for them to put down a 10% down payment to make the payments over a period of time. A lot of people, because of their financial constraints and that 18%, by law, we are required to collect all of the dollars and the taxes that are owed. We cannot reduce that. We cannot offer a settlement as a servicer or someone that owns these tax liens can. They can offer a settlement. We cannot do that. And so there are a lot of things that goes into why we do this, and the most of it, and most important for the administration, is to actually keep owner occupants in their home and for a longer period of time. If we decide that that is not what we want to do, that we don't want to sell tax liens, then we will put ourselves in a situation, as I said, where we will be actually evicting people that have owned their home for many years, and our goal is not necessarily to do that. Some of the providers, the tax lien providers, are in a different position to work with homeowners than we are. And so the letter, the response to Councilmember Ortiz was back in June 28th of 2018. And that response detailed the reasons why we do this hybrid approach. I will make sure that we share that with council. But I think that this is a more in-depth conversation about where we want to go as a city and what policy council really wants us to follow. That is not just, we gotta get out of tax liens. It's, okay, if we don't do tax liens, what's the alternative? Tax liens, so what is the alternative? What is the implications to our residents? And how are we going to mitigate the damage, the unintended consequences that our residents will have to face, because we are not, by law, allowed to reduce the taxes that they owe us and offer them a settlement amount.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I know the conversation is about tax liens, but I think people need to remember, and I think this is why the Office of Wealth Building is so important, because by the time a person gets to this situation with tax liens, their financial world has probably been turned upside down. The fact that they're probably going to end up losing their house or property because of they're at the stage of doing tax liens. I agree that we would need to assess the capacity of the city's ability to be able to go after and recapture all of the funds. I don't think that it's as easy as saying we're no longer just going to sell tax liens, because that could have a whole separate set of unintended consequences which could actually end up hurting the citizens and the consumers. It would be interesting to see long-term if we could see what it would cost the city to get into this business full-time of doing tax liens. Would we have to hire more people? Would we have to train more people to be able to go after people to get this money? Or do we have a better chance of recouping more funds by selling bulk tax liens, particularly at a time when we are constantly in a structural budget deficit and need more money? So I see this more as a longer-term conversation, and something that I think that we need to also think and look at from a comprehensive standpoint. How can we leverage, for example, the community, the Office of Community Wealth Building to work with citizens that we know through an early warning system that might be in danger of defaulting on their taxes? So, but from a practical standpoint, I think we need to try to capture as much revenue as we can during these difficult budget times that we face.
So, like everybody else on council, I hate selling tax liens. But at the same time, I would encourage everyone to remember that all tax liens are not created equally. The tax liens that I worry about the most that we sell are those tax liens that are applied to, in many cases, seniors who own their homes outright, who have a very limited income, who don't have an escrow account. So when that tax bill comes, they just don't have the capacity to pay it all off in a timely manner. And I've had a chance to talk to numerous homeowners in my district who are paying ATF off every year. They pay the penalty, they end up paying their taxes and the penalty, but because they don't have an escrow account, because their finances are horrible, because, you know, unfortunately in America there is no safety net for you once you get over 50, you fall through and you hit the ground. And so we have a lot of folks who, as horrible as this is going to sound, this is a better deal for them than they can get anywhere else because there's nowhere else they can go to get this money. No, Jackie, they can't. It's not always that simple. I've had folks who have been behind with ATF, and ATF, I've spoken to ATF, and ATF has spoken to them, and they basically said, lady, we don't want your house. We just don't. We'll make a deal with you. And they've made deals and they've gotten out. But then when your money's shaky and your money's short, you know, it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, it shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this easy. It shouldn't be this hard. We should be able to do something and not have to sell these liens. But unless we are really going to work on lowering our interest rate and deciding that we're going to defer tax revenue from one group of citizens while demanding it from another group of citizens, you know, there's some things we really can't do. So the challenge is going forward, you can't cure everything, but who are the people you need to take care of the most? And I think the folks we need to really worry about taking care of the most are our seniors who own these houses outright, who owe us taxes, but at the same time, for whatever reason, just don't have that revenue flow where they can pay this in a timely manner. And that's real. And that's not hypothetical. That's me talking to constituents who have these problems, who I get these phone calls with, who I'm talking to ATF. And again, I've got a lady in mind who lives in my district. I kid you not. We sell her tax lien every year that it comes up to be sold, and the county sells her tax year every year that it comes up to be sold. And the way her money works, she still pays, and she pays that penalty, but she pays. And I don't know any other way to give her a remedy. So if you want to be angry, if you want to be upset, if you want to be passionate, let's go work on those folks. Let's find a solution to that problem.
Well, I'm still going to hold it. I'm going to move to the next item. Still going to hold it. We'll revisit it on Tuesday. Hopefully it'll give us enough time to kind of digest what you said, Madam Mayor, and we'll take action probably then. Introductory item number 49, authorizing litigation and a retainer agreement for litigation against opioid manufacturers and distributors. Comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. Introductory item number 50, authorizing an agreement with CipherWorks, Inc. for online employee training. Comments or questions on this? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. Introductory item number 51, amending the city budget to purchase new on-street parking meters. Comments or questions?
I do have a question. Thank you. So are we replacing all of the meter heads that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I feel like I had another question. Are we working with the same vendor? There must be just the vendor associated with the meter heads. Is that?
We went through a bid process.
We did,
and
okay.
That's how the vendor was selected.
Okay, it was not outlined here. I think that was my only question. No, it wasn't. How many meters do we have total?
Is Laura here?
I am here.
Okay.
We have 832 spaces that use single head parking meters.
Okay. And how many of the other kind of parking meters do we have? The
The pay stations,
Yes, the pay stations. Thank you. I knew there was a catchy term.
133, I believe.
133. Okay. Just trying to get a sense of the proportion of what's out there. Thank you.
Madam President,
So this replaces the meter heads, but not with pay stations. Is that right?
Correct.
When we talked about, there were concerns about parking in some of the residential areas before with the coin meters, and we were told that we didn't have any reasonable options around that. Is that still the case?
The coin meters, this is actually replacing those coin meters to allow for pay by phone options as well as credit card options. All of those coin meters will be removed and replaced with better technology and better options for our residents.
When we had that discussion before, the
And
response.
they can still utilize coins as well.
Okay. So the cost for that is not as overwhelming as it was previously? Because we were told before that the cost of those kinds of meters was greater than the resource that you get from having the meter.
So our estimation is that we would be basically cost neutral, but this is really about giving our residents and our visitors other options than trying to figure out how to how to go get a change for a dollar. So we don't expect to, in all honesty, make money off of this. We don't expect to lose money off of it either. We expect it to be cost neutral, but we believe that when we tested the model that we have more people that were utilizing these meters than not. And so we think that once they're changed out, that possibly that our estimation of being cost neutral, probably we may make some money off of this, but this is really about offering different options for those individuals that don't carry cash, that carry a credit card and also have a phone that they can do pay by phone on.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yeah, thank you. Just out of curiosity, the company that's doing these, do they do municipal meters in other cities around? Is there a couple examples you could give? Just curiosity.
Laura?
Yes, I can. Would you like those now, or would you like me to?
You can send them. That'd be
I will
great.
send
And then my other question is there a fee to download the app to be able?
There's no fee to download the app.
And then
There's
what-
a convenience fee to use the app.
So each time someone is going to pay for parking with the app, this processor, a company gets a fee per. So if I park and I put in an hour's worth, I get charged, and then my meeting's running late, I put in another hour's worth, I get charged again.
There's only an initial fee. If you extend your session, there is not another fee. If you begin a new session at a different space, you pay the fee again.
What is the fee?
It was 35 cents per transaction with the trial that we did. And that's the consumer's cost, not ours.
And that's pretty standard across the board for meter systems like this?
It is.
Thank you.
So sorry, is that the same amount that they pay by using the pay stations? Is there a 35-cent transaction fee on those as well?
If they use a credit card, if they
It
put
is.
in cash, then
Right,
there would
it's
not.
not, right, but it is the same amount. I was just. I
Well,
know
there's
we
no
try to make
fee,
everything the same.
there's no transaction fee if you use your credit card at a pay station, but the pay stations don't utilize pay-by-phone apps.
So it's the phone piece that
The
gives you.
phone app with these
Not the
single-space
credit
meters.
card.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Councilmember Spall.
Thank you. So there's no change in the hourly rate, right?
Correct.
Thanks. Okay.
Are any other comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. Is there any other business to come before the committee? Before we adjourn, I'd just like to say we are in the process of orchestrating a meeting with the Rochester City School District to talk about their budget. Are we aiming for April? We'll send an email out. Yes, we'll send an email. We originally said March 25th, but they had something going on that date. But we're going to do it in April. That way we can have discussions about their financial situation before we get to June. We're adjourned.
At this time, I call the Neighborhood and Business Development Committee to order, and I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot.
Present, ma'am.
Councilmember Ortiz. Here. Vice President McFadden. Here. President Scott.
Here.
Introductory number 52, authorizing the acceptance of real estate by donation. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Andrew's telling somebody something.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item passes. Introductory number 53, amending ordinance numbers.
Abstain.
Okay, so you abstain.
I
Okay.
think I must abstain as a member of the land bank.
Okay, the item still passes. Okay, introductory number 53, amending ordinance numbers 2019-5 and 2019-21 as it relates to land acquisitions to construct new offices for the Rochester Police Department Goodman section in the Southeast Neighborhood Service Center. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item passes. Introductory number 54, authorizing a lease agreement with Chase Farm Partnership. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item passes. Introductory number 55, authorizing a license agreement for a portion of 101 Hollywood Street. Need a motion and a second.
Moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item passes. Introductory number 56, amending ordinance number 2018-289 for the 52 Broadway Development Project. Public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the March 14th, 2019 committee meeting. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, need a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Item passes. Introductory number URA 2, amending resolution number URA 6 of 2018 regarding the 52 Broadway Development Project. Public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the March 14th, 2019 committee meeting. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, need a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Item passes. Introductory number 57, appropriating funds for quadrant support. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, need a motion and a second.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item passes. Introductory number URA 3, resolution approving the Rochester Urban Renewal Agency's 2019-20 annual budget and performance measures for 2019 and performance measures report for 2018. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, need a motion and a second.
Move.
All in favor? Aye. Item passes. Introductory number 58, amending the zoning code by adding the Planned Development District number 17 Highland Hospital. Public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the March 14th, 2019 committee meeting. This item will be held in committee. Questions, comments, or concerns? No questions. No questions. No comments. Councilmember McFadden.
I wanted to back cleanup here. I was waiting for someone else to say something. We're trying to organize a meeting for Monday with the hospital and neighbors who are concerned about the impact of the proposed height of the hospital and other things. We hope to, come away with a concession, but also some agreement about what will happen at the hospital. I think that the folks at the hospital have been very responsive to the community at this point, and we want to give the community a chance to respond as well. So hopefully Monday evening, 5:30-ish, 6 o'clock, we'll be here to talk about that.
Introductory number 59, amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of 990 1000 South Avenue to Plan Development District number 17, Highland Hospital. Public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the March 14, 2019 committee meeting. This item will also be held. Introductory, any comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, okay. Introductory number 60, authorizing payment in lieu of taxes agreement for the Thurston Chili Affordable Housing Project. Questions, comments, or concerns? Councilmember Gruber.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Patterson. I'm thrilled about this. It's amazing work by the city and home leasing for stepping up. I'm just wondering, I know there were a number of issues with properties that the previous owner had, and I believe some of them are in court, but I'm wondering if we can just get an update, even if it's not now, if it's through email or something like that, on what's going on with those properties.
Yeah, I would much rather give you an email on the status
Yep.
of that.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, seeing any other questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item passes. Introductory number 61, authorizing the sale of real estate and a payment in lieu of taxes agreement for the Union Square project. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Item passes. Introductory number 62, resolution approving appointments to the Board of Examiners of Stationary Engineers and Refrigeration Operators. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Item passes. Introductory number 63, resolution approving appointments to the Electrical Examining Board. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item passes. Is there any other business to come before this committee? That concludes the work of the Neighborhood and Business Development Committee. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Parks and Public Works Committee to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Evans?
Present.
Councilmember Gruber?
Here.
Councilmember Spall?
Here.
Vice President McFadden? Here. President Scott?
Introductory number 64, authorizing an agreement for the Joseph A. Floriano Rochester Riverside Convention Center Partition Wall Replacement Project. Questions, comments, or concerns on 64? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I
Thank you.
abstain.
Okay, one abstention. Introductory number 65, authorizing an agreement for the Emergency Communications Department Facility Improvement Project. Questions, comments, or concerns?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. Introductory number 66 is a bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $1,121,000 in bonds of said city to finance the cost of the Emergency Communications Department Facility Improvements Project. Any questions, comments, or concerns on 66?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Introductory number 67 is authorizing agreements for the Rock the Riverway Initiative. Questions, comments, or concerns? Councilmember Gruber?
Thank you. A few months ago, we passed legislation contracting with someone from Tampa. I'm forgetting his name to work on some of the organizing the Rock the Riverway projects, and I'm wondering if there's a chance to, at some point when he is here, to organize a work session for council.
Absolutely. We will make sure that that happens. He is here to look at the management entity and what type of best practice that we could provide for the Rock the Riverway.
And helping to oversee the kind of coordination of all of these things at once, in some ways? No.
Well, eventually, hopefully, the management entity would take on those roles. He's not taking on that role right now. What he is actually doing is looking at the fact that we have a downtown enhancement district, and there has been talks in the past of doing a bid and other management models for an entity to actually put on events and program the public space. And so he's helping us look at what we have, look at what other cities have, and be able to develop a management model that can be successful for Rochester. And then our hope is that eventually this management entity would take over the management of projects in the future of Rock the Riverway. But at this point in time, the management of these projects will be with our DES team.
Got you. So maybe when he has a recommendation on the management entity, that would be a good time for a work session.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Patterson.
That's all I wanted to say. Great work. You and your team are to be commended. Outstanding. Thank you.
This is great news for the city, and congratulations to the mayor and her team. Any other thing, anyone have anything else on introductory number 67?
So moved?
So
Second.
moved. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, I have to abstain again.
Okay. One abstention.
Moved.
Sorry. Somebody
Do we
else
need-
has to move and second it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then one abstention is noted. Introductory number 68 is amending the official map by abandoning a portion of Pickens Street.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Evans. There was there was supposed to be a motion to amend the legislation to correct the project names for item
it's-
number 67.
Yep, yep, we got something on the blue sheet.
Yes.
on the leaf page.
Let me go back to 67. Could I get a motion to amend legislation to correct the project names?
So moved.
Second?
Oh, second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion has passed. And then back to the original vote on 67, authorizing the agreements with the Rocket Woodbury Initiative. And can I get another motion,
Moved.
Councilman Gruber? Second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
I'm still gonna
Aye.
abstain.
Aye. Aye.
And-
Councilmember Spall abstains. That's noted. Thank you. Introductory number 68 is amending the official map by abandoning a portion of Pickens Street. A public hearing is to be held at 5 p.m. after the March 14, 2019 committee meeting. Any questions or comments or concerns on 68?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Introductory number 69 is amending the official map and authorizing the sale of real estate. A public hearing will be held at 5 p.m. after the March 14, 2019 committee meetings. There are questions or comments on this?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Introductory number 70 is authorizing an agreement for water main valve box adjustments and replacements. Is there questions or comments on number 70? Yes, council members.
Thank you. Commissioner, can you just tell me what the updated project will look like? Because while I'm obviously excited that it's going to take place earlier than it was supposed to, will the state still do what it was going to do in 2021? And what is that?
Yes, it's a M&R job in which they're going to raise all the manholes, all the water valves, and basically you're going to have a new street coming from Lake Avenue all the way down to Ridgeway. And this was accelerated because of the condition of the street.
Yes, and we appreciate your diligence on that because I know it's driven you crazy as much as everybody else. My understanding was that there were going to be some opportunities for looking at some of the restriping signage, some of the things that we talked about in terms of trying to get people to slow down a little bit more. Will those opportunities still exist?
Traffic calming, the actual resynchronization of the signaling will be part of that, and all types of engineering measures will be in place for this part of the M&R project for Lake Avenue.
Great. Will there be any kind of public meeting, public hearing, just to let people know what's going on with the schedule and what they can expect?
Absolutely. We'll make sure that you are kept abreast, and there'll be public notices, both from the state and from the city.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else on introductory 70?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Introductory number 71 is amending ordinance number 2019-28. Any questions or comments on 71?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Final introductory of the afternoon is authorizing pavement width changes related to the Strong Neighborhood of Play and Development Project. A public hearing will be held on this matter at 5 p.m. after the March 14, 2019 committee meetings. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the Parks and Public Works Committee? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'd like to call to order the Public Safety, Youth, and Recreation Committee. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Present, ma'am.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz, Vice President McFadden, President Scott.
Here.
Introduction number 73, authorizing an agreement with Rochester Youth Sports Foundation for the Gus Macker 3-on-3 tournament. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Question.
Madam President.
I didn't quite understand the response to what was the basis for the increase in participants?
You're talking about the answer to question number
Yeah.
one? Okay.
I got it. Well, part of it was the first year it interfered with an AAU tournament that was going on at the same time. That was part of the response to the question. And just, I think it's catching on. We went from 130 teams to 174 teams last year. We're hoping to go to 250 to 300 teams this year. It's just, because of this tournament is different than many of the other tournaments, and you have to pre-register 2 weeks ahead of time. It's taking a little while for folks to catch on to that, because the old Teddy T and some of the other tournaments you could walk up and register for.
So the assumption is that because we don't have the same kind of date conflicts,
Yes.
and because it's now catching up to itself.
Yes.
Kind of, gotcha, okay.
Okay, does that mean that the SMT is going to have a 3-on-3 team as well?
And council.
And council? Oh, I don't know about that. All right, anybody, any other questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Introductory number 74, authorizing agreement for the development of web-based mobile applications for Department of Recreation and Youth Services. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns? Councilmember Gruber.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner Farr, as you well know, as a young pup, I worked at the public market, and I know that there was very little stability for a lot of the vendors and where they actually were. Is this going to be something that that takes that into account? Have the vendors shown pushback? Are they excited about it? For the
Yeah.
market app?
Well, I'll answer that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So, yes, we've held a recent vendor meeting where vendors did express that there be support with helping to connect customers to them a little bit better. And this is designed to do that. The concept here is to create a directory that can be populated each day as the vendors are placed in different slots as they come in each day, and they'll be able to be checked into those slots and populate a directory and enhance the customer's connection to them and their shopping experience.
Great. So your team, Commissioner, every market day will help to coordinate and make sure that whatever is on the app is up to date with what's at the market.
It'll happen either with staff check-ins or the vendors can check in themselves at a location.
Great. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I want to commend Madam Commissioner for this work. It definitely is going to make the experience of shopping there great, and utilizing the technology the way you guys are utilizing, I think is warranted, especially for such a time as most people are shopping online and doing all that stuff anyway. So I think creating apps, and hopefully we'll see more of this becoming more of a trend for city government, having apps for various services that we provide. So I commend you on this work. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? I entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Introduction passes. Introduction number 74, authorizing a mandatory agreement with the Monroe County for traffic signal.
75.
75.
I'm sorry. Introductory number 75, I thought that's what I said. Authorizing a mandatory agreement with the Monroe County for traffic signal preemption maintenance. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns? If not,
So moved.
second, anyone?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Introductory number 76, authorizing a mandatory agreement for the Uniform Relocation Act compliance service related to the Campbell Street R Center Gateway Project. Any questions, comments, or concerns? None, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Introductory number 77, authorizing a grant agreement with the New York State Council on the Arts. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Introductory passes. Is there any other business to come before the Public Safety, Youth, and Recreation Committee? If none, we are adjourned.
So I'm just going to speak for 5 minutes until 4, no, I'm teasing. We have to wait for 5 minutes, sorry, guys. You guys made up time. We can talk amongst ourselves. Oh, yeah. So can I?
How many minutes we do public hearing speakers?
3 minutes?
I think it's 3. I'm surprised there are not more people here.
Really?
Okay, everybody. I'm going to call the Arts and Culture Committee. Hello out there. I'm going to ask the Arts and Culture Committee to call to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Spall.
Here.
Councilmember Clifford.
Here.
Councilmember Patterson. Vice President McFadden. President Scott.
And let it be noted that everybody else is still here. Thank you. Introductory number 78, authorizing an agreement for the 2019 Rochester International Jazz Fest. Questions, comments? Molly? Councilmember Clifford, sorry.
I answer to either. I'm sorry, I wasn't more clear in the budget that I was looking for. I appreciate the budget of the Jazz Fest, but I was actually looking for what the city's portion of the 273,000, what that's made up of. How many hours of police work, that kind of stuff, which you could send me if you can. Sure.
So you want, just so we're clear as to what you're asking for, so out of the $243,000, what we would be paying for out of that?
Yes, what does the 243,000 cover?
Okay, so that would include the free shows and other things that we, so Kara, okay, you got it, okay.
Maybe I'm confused. But
Can we move this forward and get that by Tuesday, Councilmember Clifford?
before Tuesday, it's cool.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Hearing no more questions or comments, can I have a motion? Second? Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I say aye, passes 5-0. Introductory number 79, authorizing an agreement
Excuse
for the
me.
2019 Rochester Twilight Criterium.
Excuse me, Councilmember Spall, just to go back to the other item.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Just to answer Councilmember Clifford's question, the city's portion of that 243,000, that's that 482,850.
Yes,
We pay 243,000 of that.
of that.
So that includes the free stages, the
Police.
sound system, the RPD cloak, the security, the payroll, insurance. So that's outlining. So 243,000 of that
Of the 482,
Right.
okay.
is what we cover.
Gotcha. All right. So it not necessarily broken out, but that's what it covers. All right. And they are showing a $112,000 loss. Is that about average per year?
I think that's just showing that our sponsorship does not cover what the free shows cost them. It still costs them more to put on than what we're sponsoring.
It is a, yes, a statement. Got it.
Yes, exactly.
It's likely subsidized by something else, Councilmember Clifford, my guess is. So, yeah.
It's just always funny to see what is left in and what is left out.
Yeah,
But thank you.
Are you satisfied, or do you need more information?
I think I'm satisfied.
Okay,
We can
thank you.
always talk offline. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, okay? Introductory number 79, authorizing an agreement for the 2019 Rochester Twilight Criterium. Questions, comments about the bike race? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Ooh, move, and second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I say aye, passes 5-0. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. 5 o'clock on the dot.
I got 4:59.
Danielle said that Martina is not being moved, and that the one other person that was handling the disbanding thing, she said that she was getting a promotion because somebody at school number 17 got demoted, so she is actually being promoted.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The public hearing is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Please take your seats.
We will begin the public hearings. The meeting will come to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Clifford?
Here.
Councilmember Evans? Councilmember Gruber? Councilmember Lightfoot? Councilmember Ortiz? Councilmember Patterson? Councilmember Spall?
Here.
Vice President McFadden? President Scott?
Here. I now ask the clerk to begin the hearings.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending ordinance number 2018-289 for the 52 Broadway Development Project, introductory number 56. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
If there are no speakers, that hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing.
Are you coming to speak on the last?
Not yet, not yet. Not yet. We'll get to you.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending resolution number URA-6 of 2018 regarding the 52 Broadway Development Project, introductory number URA-2. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
If there are no speakers, that hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending the zoning code by adding the Planned Development District number 17, Highland Hospital, introductory number 58. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Hi.
Would you please state your name? There is a 3-minute limit for each speaker. You'll get, there will be a buzzer at the 2.5-minute mark.
Okay.
Please complete your remarks then.
Yep. My name's Roxanne Townsend, and I'm the chair of the Highland Park Neighborhood Association. And this is my first time speaking here, so if I'm sweaty and nervous and stumbling over my words, I apologize. I am representing the Neighborhood Association today, but I'm very new in my position. I was elected in the end of January of this year. However, since that time, we've had many, the whole Highland Park PD has come to a head, and I've relied on individuals that have been on the board and have been in discussions with Highland Park or Highland Hospital for some time. So all our positions have been advised by those people, not just me. However, I do agree with the positions that have been put forward. Over the last few weeks, I've also had the opportunity to speak with neighbors that live around the hospital, and again, I feel like our current position supports those neighbors. The change in the position of HPNA's support for PD number 17 that has been discussed in the media over the last few days is a result of the letter written to the Planning Commission dated February 1st, prior to the release of the current PD on February 4th. When the board members that are familiar with this saw the February 4th PD version, they were immediately concerned that building heights street side had not been addressed and were not written in the spirit of the discussions that have been going on for several years and months with the hospital. So I think that's important because the position has not changed necessarily from the Neighborhood Association over the years. Another data point for that is a letter that was written in October, on October 1st, 2018. and this was sent to the Director of Zoning, and I'd like to just read a couple paragraphs from that. Match strong hospitals setback requirements. PDD number 10 requires that hospital buildings along Cashmere Road and Westmoreland Drive be 3 stories. Then stepped back, Mount Vernon Avenue, Rockingham Street, and Bellevue Drive are residential streets similar to the ones near Strong. The existing houses vary from 1 to 3 stories. These 3 stories before the setback, it will help maintain the scale of the neighborhood, while 5 stories will not. So that was our position in October as well. There is precedence for this. Strong Memorial Hospitals PD has a 3-story with a step back, and Rochester General has a 60 feet height limit with 100 feet from any residential areas. So our counter proposal in the letter, which I am not reiterating because I believe you all have this, is actually more generous than those step backs. And I also would like to thank City Council today for putting this on hold so that we would have time to review this and hopefully adjust and amend these heights for street side buildings. Thank you.
My name is Mary Nicosia. I'm a neighborhood advocate. I've been a Rochester City resident for 35 years. I'm here in support of approval of the Planned Development District application for Highland Hospital. Highland Hospital has worked diligently over the years to engage neighborhood residents in these plans and have made sensible and sensitive modifications as needed. They have met with the neighborhood 50 times over 5 years. 50 times over 5 years. I have complete faith that the city zoning and city planning has done its due diligence in what is required and what is approved within the city limits, and have also done their due diligence in this process. As a city resident, I have actively participated on both sides of the aisle in various expansion and preservation projects over the past 10 years. I am also a survivor of the construction and approval of 1100 University Avenue, the renovation of Midtown Tower, and the infamous and excruciatingly painful demolition, expansion, and reconstruction of East Avenue Wegmans. With the recent negative job market, weather, and business climate in news in Rochester, I think it's important to recognize and celebrate private organizations that are willing to invest private monies for the betterment to serve the community in which they do business, and this is Highland Hospital. The modernization of Highland Hospital and the enhancement of private rooms, which is standard in the hospital industry that is newly constructed at this time, ensures Highland can be state-of-the-art and can be competitive well into its future. As in all the projects mentioned above, I would expect and would appreciate the neighbors to be vocal, have opinions of involvement, and simply put, it means that people care. I do the same thing in the projects. I was not in favor of East Avenue Wegmans expansion. I understand that. However, it's been 5 years and 50 conversations with the neighbors, and Highland has been a great partner and obviously been a long-standing resident in that neighborhood. There are also some very peaceful and quiet neighbors to the southwest in that neighborhood. As a former realtor of historic properties, this quintessential city neighborhood enjoys some of the most desired residential properties with the most stable property values. The feedback from the National Historic Office of Preservation has deemed there's been no adverse impact in the city properties with an expansion of this type. And there comes a time when feedback's been given, modifications have been made, and approval needs to be given. And I'm asking that at this time that we consider what Highland Hospital has done with the 50 meetings with the neighborhood and recognize that sometimes stagnation in Rochester equals paralysis. Can you imagine if you had to do this with every industry that wanted to expand in the city limits? So I'm asking for your support of approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Claire Marziotti. I lived on Bellevue Drive for almost 20 years. I sympathize with the hospital's need to modernize and grow, and I understand that we all benefit from state-of-the-art healthcare. I also realize, like most of us, the hospital does not have unlimited dollars to upgrade. Looking at the long, long history of the hospital's growth by simply walking around the campus, you can plainly see that it is a disparate collection of buildings stitched together with varying degrees of success. No doubt each piece of new construction followed the exigencies of its time, space, budget, need, and so forth, completely rational. However, that collection of buildings does not add up to a unified campus that follows architectural best practices for an institution nested in an urban residential neighborhood. We understand how we got there, but we believe to approve a zoning plan that includes the maximum heights and shallow setbacks that this one allows will burnish past mistakes, not correct them. In fact, it will amplify them. For example, the current building proposal relocates the weight of the campus to the southeast corner, just feet from 1- and 2-story homes and backyards, rather than concentrating it close to the geographical center of the campus. Now is the time to turn the tide and make all new development future-focused. In the Rochester area, it's not hard to find places where unchecked development has resulted in scars that will mark our town for a long, long time. I'd like to see the hospital work toward a master plan for the campus that gives it what it needs to serve patients while preserving the character of the neighborhood through best practice development. I ask that the City Council require Highland Hospital to rework its plan to lower maximum heights and widen setbacks. Thank you.
City Council members, my name is Dr. Bob McCann, and I've been the Chief of Medicine at Highland for 20 years. Thank you for this opportunity to talk with you tonight about our proposed plan. With all due respect to some of the other speakers tonight, for me, this proposal boils down to one thing, and that's excellent patient care. This is what matters to me most as a physician. And Highland is really, we've been around since 1889, and the parts of our facility are over 95 years old. And it's really imperative, if we're going to continue to deliver wonderful care in our community, that we continually modernize our facility. And as was stated, private rooms now are really the state of the art now in all new hospitals that are being built. Now, why do we like private rooms? Well, number one, you have privacy, you can sleep better, we know that you have less infections, and you don't transfer germs to one another. Who would not want this for any of us or our loved ones when hospitalized? And private rooms really, again, are such an important thing, and I think we're going to see this not only in our community, but all over the country. So I hope that we can count on your support for this really important endeavor. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kerry Regan, and I live on Bellevue Drive. I've been there for about 20 years. I was on the hospital's neighborhood steering committee, which meant monthly for 2 years on the zoning plan and the addition. And I was a founder of Defend Urban Neighborhoods, which urged the hospital to stop buying neighborhood properties a few years back. I see a new zoning code as an opportunity to reset and put us on a good development path, and I see this zoning plan going in the wrong direction. It makes some of the hospital's most egregiously out-of-scale heights and setback features the standards moving forward. An example of good scale is the hospital's South Avenue 5-story entrance building, which has a generous setback to make it less imposing. That's the standard that should be applied to the other 3 sides of the campus. I have 3 issues: perimeters, building heights, and the new addition. On Bellevue today, the 5-story entrance building that scales well on South Avenue essentially becomes a 5-story sheer brick wall that abruptly rises abruptly where Bellevue dead ends. In the PD, that is the new standard. 5-story buildings with 0 setbacks from the sidewalks on all campus perimeters except Rockingham, which has a 20-foot setback. That would scale well with 5-story Brooklyn brownstones, but not with our neighborhood's 1-, 2-, and 3-story houses. The perimeters should be no taller than 3 stories with more spacious setbacks. Second, on the overall building heights, it's a good idea to put the tallest buildings in the center of the campus, but they have to be nearly twice as tall as what's there now. I've been to dozens of meetings with the hospital, and I've never heard them say or make a claim that they need that kind of space. Surely they can find the future flexibility they need with a central campus heights only slightly higher than current heights. Finally, I have an issue with the addition. When the hospital sought a variance to build the 2016 two-story addition upon which the structure is being built, neighbors on the steering committee gave it our blessing on the condition that any floors added to the future would not rise above the current tallest building on the campus, which is 100 feet. This is documented in meeting notes the hospital signed off on that are posted online for anyone to see. The proposed new addition is 120 feet tall. That's 20 feet taller than what they said it would be, so we should insist the hospital honor that. In closing, to the hospital administration, if this plan passes, please apply it with discretion. We see you can build and scale with the neighborhood, and I urge you to do that in future projects, no matter what the zoning plan permits. To the City Council, I ask, why would we cede this power and discretion to a group that didn't keep its word to the neighbors on this very topic? This plan will guide development of the hospital for decades to come, so I urge you to return it to the hospital for the revisions I've described, lower heights, more generous setbacks, and an addition that meets their promised spec. I'm a great fan of the hospital services, and it's great to be able to just walk there from where we live. I want it to succeed, but we also want our residential neighborhood to succeed, and we can have both. We just need the hospital to pull back a little bit, and that's what we're asking you to help us do. Thank you.
My name is Wayne Willis. Since 1986, my wife and I have owned our home in the Highland Park neighborhood at the corner of Bellevue Drive and Mount Vernon, facing the south side of Highland Hospital. Over those 33 years, we've had occasion to use services of the hospital a number of times and have always consistently have received good quality care. We appreciate that, and we certainly want the hospital to be in a position in the future to continue to provide good quality care, excellent quality care. However, I was also one of the 57 neighbors from the immediate streets around the hospital who signed a letter to the City Planning Commission in early February requesting that they not approve this PD proposal in its current form. The objection that we had was particularly to the allowance that this proposal would give to the hospital to build, as others have said, buildings of 5 stories basically around the entire perimeter of the hospital, right up to the street, and at 7 stories with just a little bit of a setback. This is simply too much. It's too big, for a neighborhood that consists of 1 and 2 and at most 3-story houses. And there's no evidence so far that anybody has seen, any neighbors have seen, that the hospital's future needs will require such an incredibly generous allowance for potential construction. We were disappointed that the members of the City Planning Commission, in their hearing, which some of us attended after the formal hearing and when they vote, seemed to give almost no serious consideration to the issues presented by the neighbors. It really was just sort of kind of checking off boxes. Does this proposal meet this criterion to be a proper proposal or not? And it was very disappointing. We hope that City Council will give more serious consideration to these matters. During our time in the neighborhood, we've seen the negative effects that past Highland construction projects have had upon the neighborhood. And this has left the neighborhood and the hospital in a kind of precarious state of balance. A balance that has kind of gone a little bit this way and a little bit that way over a 100-year period. In the future, this balance should be preserved rather than further eroded by any further projects for development. Thank you.
My name is Jeff DiToro, and I think I might have a unique perspective on Highland's rezoning and current plan to add private rooms. I'm not only a neighbor, I'm an employee of UR Medicine working at Highland, and I've been an inpatient and outpatient at Highland on numerous occasions. Today I'm speaking just for myself, but as an individual who wouldn't be alive if it weren't for modern medicine. I chose to use my IT background to work in healthcare IT because I have a deep respect for the work performed by the caregivers, and specifically, I chose to work at Highland because of what the nurses, doctors, patient care techs, EMTs, and others who work in that building have done for me and my family over the years. I truly wouldn't be here without them. Now, as a progressive, I support community involvement in almost everything, and I would not hesitate to support the neighbors here today if they had raised legitimate concerns about air, water, soil quality issues, but no such concerns exist. I would be supportive if any of them were going to lose any sunlight, or if they had a building towering over them. But that is not the case. And the buildings that do exist on Mount Vernon, for example, predate the single-family homes across the street. In fact, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a neighbor whose presence in the area predates Highland in its current form. Contrary to what News 10 may indicate, the relationship between Highland and the majority of the neighbors has improved dramatically over the last few years. And I've seen Highland leaders not only bend over backwards to work with neighbors, but most importantly, incorporate the neighbors' desires into future construction plans. In fact, the current planned private room expansion does just that. The building getting more floors is an interior building, which is largely invisible from most parts of the neighborhood. So I'm having trouble being sympathetic to what I believe are not progressive arguments about preserving neighborhoods, but what are actually, as it sounds to me, NIMBY arguments about not wanting Highland in their backyard. My request to the council is simply to weigh the neighbors' claims on their merits. They have asked Highland to redesign the hospital in the style of a wedding cake. The problem is, wedding cakes are baked from scratch, and Highland is not an empty lot. You can no more push all of Highland's buildings into the middle of the 9-acre campus than you can take 2 existing wedding cakes and smush them together. I just don't think their plans are feasible. Finally, as you know, the city faces serious problems: drug addiction, obesity, infant mortality, violence from crime, and systemic poverty. Highland is a part of the solution on all of these issues. If a few neighbors believe that scale and sightlines should compete for attention with those problems, that's their prerogative. But please allow Highland to continue to serve its customers at the highest level by modernizing its capabilities. Thank you.
My name is Susan Medoff-Willis, and I live at 105 Bellevue Drive. I attended the City Planning Commission hearing with my husband, where opposition of neighbors to the Highland Hospital Plan Development District was squelched by the admonition to speak only if your concerns have not already been voiced, yet where so many of us were there because we shared the same concerns. I'm quite discouraged and disillusioned by this process. The notion put forth in the Commission's discussion after the hearing seemed to be that if the hospital says they need it, even if it doesn't sound like such a good idea, they must be allowed to proceed. Nowhere did the concerns of the neighborhood about the size and height of what the hospital is proposing seem to register. My husband and I have lived in our home at the corner of Bellevue Drive and Mount Vernon for almost 33 years. We have loved our home in this community. However, after seeing the results of the 2 years some of our neighborhood representatives worked on the steering committee with Highland Hospital go up in smoke because the hospital rejected the concerns most vigorously voiced by neighbors, I wonder whether my husband and I would choose to buy our home today. With the plan of a 7-story hospital tower looming over our streets, and with the option for a much taller and larger behemoth on the horizon, and with no or inadequate setbacks from residential streets for other 5 or 7-story buildings. Yes, Highland Hospital is an important community resource, and we appreciate it. They have identified ways, which turn out to be rather easy ways, to assuage the community with plantings and with meetings. However, good neighbors are not prepared to do whatever they wish at the expense of the rest of their community, and that is what Highland Hospital is asking to do here. Can you visualize not only a 7-story, but an 11-story building towering over this historic neighborhood that abuts Highland Park? This is not right, and I would hope this would not be acceptable to any of you, and that the City Council would not be supporting a plan that will inevitably cause the erosion of a successful, century-old residential neighborhood. Thank you.
I am Catherine Hall. I live at 382 Mount Vernon, which is directly across the street from the south building of Highland Hospital. And I object to that gentleman saying that no houses currently are dwarfed. My house is a one-story across the street from the hospital that currently has no setbacks, and it's 4 stories high. If they go through my house, I will never see the sun again. And I try not to be NIMBY, but I please take into consideration that the hospital is surrounded on 3 sides by as a residential area. Please try to balance the needs of the hospital, and I'm not saying, I don't think it should be either or. I think they can get single patient rooms as well as respect the neighborhood. That's all I'm asking is a balance. And I appreciate you letting me talk.
Hi, I've lived in my house on Bellevue Drive for almost 27 years, and I've also been a physician at Strong Hospital for 27 years, and during that time, I'm certainly well aware of what the needs of modern hospitals are. I work in a very overcrowded emergency department. I experience boarding problems every day, so I am well aware that Highland Hospital has a need for private rooms. What I don't think is true, and I think Highland is being somewhat disingenuous, is to say that the only place that those private rooms can occur is right on the border of the residential neighborhood. Taking Strong as an example, it's certainly possible to build new structures on new pieces of ground closer to South Avenue. That could work. They seem not to have taken any of this into account and just decided to go with the easiest and cheapest way, whether that impacts on the neighborhood or not. I agree with my other neighbors who have spoken about the fact that although we had a neighborhood commission that was working with the hospital, none of their recommendations seemed to be taken into account when the hospital came up with their plan. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Donna Kapersky. I've been a city resident most of my life and now live directly across the street from Highland Hospital, and they have been a good neighbor. However, just because they are a good neighbor does not mean I support their expansion. City zoning laws are put in place for a reason, to keep residential areas residential. So many times, city residents don't feel they have a voice. I say we do, through you, our elected officials. Please listen to us tonight. Please ask Highland Hospital to alter their plans and keep this beautiful area located right next to Highland Park truly residential by following the zoning guidelines that are already in place to protect urban areas. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Eve Elzenga. My wife, Annette Dragon, and I live at 415 Mount Vernon Avenue. My disappointment in the City Zoning Commission is profound. My guess is that not one of them has ever visited our neighborhood, or they would understand the character and quality of this area of Rochester. They apparently have utter contempt for our historic, high tax-paying district. So now we turn to you, our elected officials, our council members. I am inviting every one of you to come to our house and see what I am talking about, with the exception of Adam, who's been there once before. This is regardless of the area of the city you represent. I believe that each of you should have the best interest of the entire city at heart.